There is no free will. Those are the first words I ever read. I woke to them every day for many years. They were written on a sign. The sign was hung above the opposite row of bunks in the sleeping barn. I have no memories from before the farm. I assumed I was just born here. None of the children there knew why we were here or where we came from. Nobody even knew how long we had been at the farm. Some children aged, some didn't. I can't remember much, but that's what happens when you're not given too much to remember. I remember always being deliriously hungry. We would be fed 3 small meals a day, but before everyone, headmaster ran on xenon would make us watch him sprinkle a few drops of clear liquid from a label-less brown bottle on the food. Then he would serve behind the steel door and slide out each meal through a window. So you never knew if your meal was poison. Most of us danced around the edges of their food. Nobody was eager to dive in. Not when we had seen a dozen kids turn blue and die in front of us after picking the wrong meal. Several of us rarely ate the food. I never ate from my plate. I would scavenge what little clean scraps there were in the garbage. I ate 4 crows. They are just as disgusting as saying implies. And I would go full Rhinefield and eat flies, ants, dandelions, cockroaches, clovers, pillbugs, anything living and somewhat edible. I would keep the spiders. I had a special place for those. The 20 boys and 30-odd girls worked the fields that provided all the food to the farm. A crumbling wood compound fenced by tall barbed wire and the surrounding woods. Past that, the wilderness. Even though there wasn't spotlights or guards, the farm was much more inescapable than the prison. Every few weeks, Headmaster Xenon would take the near 100 of us to the edge of his farm, where he would blow a strange brass whistle. Bloodshot German shepherds sprang from the underbush as if they had been waiting for his call, mouths foaming as they gnashed their teeth on the rusted barbed wire, threatening to break in and chew us alive as the headmaster coldly smiled and spoke with a voice that sounded like gunshots fired far away. "Their old guard dog's gone rabid. I have learned through one of you how to train them, and they only obey me. And if you run, they will kill you or make you wish you stay here with me." The farm never had answers. Very few people came. The rare delivery trucks, a prison bus, a black tinted window, Thunderbird that made a powerful turbine roar, as if rocket engines were installed under the hood. And they only dealt with the headmaster, the only person to leave with the driver of the Thunderbird. There was a rumor that we were not real kids at all, that Headmaster Xenon was a demon who crafted us all from blood and ash. We never dared speak to the headmaster, and asking a question was ludicrous, as a question would mean a touch from his hand, cruel hand. A hand that made the surrounding air a pincushion of pain, that would sting your skin even if his hand grazed yours. But above the poisonings, back-breaking labor and cleaning, scavenging for food and never knowing a single day what was going on, we feared the nights worst of all. Being exhausted from working in the fields all day wasn't enough to overcome the fear to sleep. When it was darkest and the air had fallen still, we would hear the headmaster's creaking footsteps just appear in the center of the drafty barn without any kind of warning. Sometimes we would hear him walk on the roof, up the walls, on the ceiling. I can still hear his breathing if I close my eyes. That sick pig's wheezing, agonized breath that sucked air in and out in a gut-throat exhaust. The breathing and the footsteps would circle and circle until he heard someone cry. That's when the taken would give one last cry before they were gone, along with the headmaster. The missing child would return to their beds in the morning, bearing new marks. A glancing finger left a nasty red and purple smear on one side. Sometimes the black fingertips dotted their bodies. We would never say anything about these marks to anyone. We were always afraid the headmaster would hear and give us matching marks to boots. Sometimes he would touch you with his entire palm, leaving a wrinkled imprint as raw and painful as a hot iron brand. I had a few marks as well, but I consider myself lucky that I only had a few marks, as far as I could tell. I was one of the 4 boys and 5 girls who cleaned the headmaster's home, the farmhouse. I cleaned the bathrooms and emptied out the shit cisterns by slop bucket and rope. I cleaned the bathrooms and eventually I found a few loose ceiling boards above the toilet when I was scrubbing for mildew, standing on the windowsill. They were right above his toilet. I began thinking. This was my life for what felt like many years. I swore I could have named 25 separate times the frost came, but we had no way to keep track of time, not even by our ages. I swore sometimes we would see a kid go from looking 13, 14, back down to looking half of that. Time made no sense at the farm, and I knew that I wasn't going to get out by waiting. When I had woke one morning to find the searing red-hot handprint of the headmaster Radon Xenon on my upper arm, a hazy, starvation-induced plan emerged from the fog of my brain. I went to the special place by the cisterns where I had kept every black widow spider I had come across. I kept them behind the false brick on the side of the farmhouse, where I once collected 8 of them and discovered that black widows were cannibalistic when grouped together. Only the strongest survived. I kept hosting tournaments until 108 black widow spiders were reduced to 26 of the most toxic, twitchy, and bite-crazy widows you never want to meet. I was bitten only twice and came very close to an agonizing death both times. I knew one bite wouldn't do a monster like Xenon, and I was set. I was ready to enact the last stage of my plan when everything changed on a cold day in the early frost, when a helicopter as black as the Thunderbird made a couple of low circles over the farm. Radon Xenon went insane. He poisoned half the meals the day after the helicopter came, and after breakfast he took us all outside to form a queue outside the chicken slaughterhouse. When he began leading us in one by one, a few joined me and ran. Judging from the screams, he caught most of the runners, but he didn't catch me. I spent many nights fantasizing about this moment, when I wasn't listening to his footsteps or sick breathing. I put the black widows inside an old compartmentalized chocolate box scavenged out of the wood pile, perfect for keeping each one locked away. I went up through the floorboards and hid in the space in the bathroom. The headmaster may not sleep through this paranoia, but everyone's gotta go eventually, even monsters. Those cisterns didn't shit themselves. It was dark by the time that he arrived with his candle. The sound of him pulling down his trousers and his simultaneous grunt masked the sound of me moving the planks above him aside, pulling the lid off the box of 26 Nightmare, showering the headmaster with ravenous, crazed gladiators. My beauties began biting the headmaster as soon as they landed. The terror of the child farm, the demon named Radon Xenon, lied curled around his toilet, eyes swelling shut, a mouth locked in a disgusted, surprised, outrageous gurgle of horror as spasms racked his whole body. Before his eyes swelled completely shut, he saw my small 7-year-old face peering down a hole in this darkness. The missing child. The headmaster began to cackle. I knew this could happen. There is no free will. It's fine. I lived 10,000 years already. I lived your happy summers, wonderful marriages, fruitful successes. Your life was beautiful beyond compare. That's why He smashed a few spiders scudding around his face, but I could tell he was fading fast. "You and I are ghosts now," were his last intelligible words before the headmaster's breathing stopped. I hid for 4 more hours before carefully making my way to the window, the safest place in the room. The spiders were done and gone. The chopper returned with the convoy of armed men right before sunrise. I was the only survivor of the farm. The captain of the operation was a man named Moxley, chief field investigator for the Security Bureau of Reclamation. He adopted me and I took his last name. He was the one who named me Howard. He even said I knew him from before. He also said he was able to find me due to tracers injected into me before I went. I never knew I had them. I told my father what little I knew. He corrected me on a few things. He chooses victims who had good lives, my father would explain as he would tuck me in. His existence is the greatest evidence that time is a physical dimension, something that exists and can be crafted and stolen. He lives your years in just a few seconds. We believed he is responsible for over 100,000 homeless children across the world, another young human with a frail, old, used-up timeline. I asked the only father I knew why he adopted me. He brought me to the master bedroom dual mirror and told me to take off my shirt. "Because I owe you. You were an old man once, Howard. You were my partner within the bureau. You went sent into the farm by yourself to try to shut it down. I will make sure you will get the help you need to remember. I had hoped that you would remember something about your past on your own, but I see the headmaster got to you too." I looked behind me using a set of mirrors to see my own back for the first time, and seeing it covered in handprints. That was many years ago. True to Headmaster's words, I have been a ghost among the living since then. It's been hard even sleeping, especially now. For the past few nights, I have heard both the Headmaster's footsteps and rasping breath next to my bed. My father never said they found the Headmaster's body. I know he wants me and his farm back. He wants me back. He wants all of his children back.